Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Lotus Way Podcast. If this is your first time joining me, I'm Alexandria K, a certified spiritual coach and yoga teacher. And the Lotus Way Podcast is a space for us to connect, for us to discuss spirituality, personal growth and development, holistic well-being practices, and so much more. It is the space where I yap, and hopefully something that I say is of value to you in your journey. So if you've been following the podcast, you know that it's been a minute since I've created an episode. Hi, good to see you, good to be back. And I wanted to come back on an episode that feels really resonant with me at this moment in time. And so by the title of this podcast, you can see that what is resonating with me most at this time is exploring divine feminine energy and what it really means to be connected with divine feminine or Shakti energy. Because personally, I feel as though I have seen so many distortions and half-truths and misunderstandings about what divine feminine energy is and how we can experience it, how we can access it, and what it means to embody that energy. I am in one way happy that it is something that is being talked about more, because I definitely think our collective is always in need of more feminine energy. However, I think these distortions and these misunderstandings are creating more disillusionment, creating more confusion, creating more distortions than are necessary. And I just wanted this podcast to potentially be an outlier to that and maybe help you to put language to some of the confusions and uncertainties that maybe you felt coming across some of the divine feminine content that you most likely have on social media and the online space, but to also help you perhaps have a perspective shift around what divine feminine energy is and how you can have your own personal relationship with that energy. I myself have also been in a space of connecting with my own feminine energy over the last, I could say couple of months, but the truth is that I've been reconnecting with my feminine energy for the last couple of years. It just has different phases and seasons, and so we've kind of gone through a little bit of a phase change. And so I've really been diving into my own feminine energy and learning to embody that in a way that feels authentic to me and the energetic state that I'm currently in. And so because I am in this space, it feels right and it feels resonant to also potentially, hopefully, be of service to you in being in that space as well. So, of course, by the title of this podcast, you know that we will be first covering 4 common distortions, misunderstandings, half-truths. We could potentially call them lies, depending on how strongly you want to word that, about divine feminine energy. Because as I said, it is becoming more popular now. It is something that is definitely a more common topic of discussion in the online spiritual space, which can be a good thing because it means more people are discovering their divine feminine energy and connecting with that energy, but it can also leave a lot of space for, I don't know the word. I'm trying to figure out the right word. It can leave space for a lot of distortion. And if we are not able to see something clearly, we're not going to be able to experience that energy clearly. So in yoga, in yogic philosophy, there is this concept called avidya, which essentially roughly translates to incorrect comprehension. And there are 4 distinct or recognized elements of avidya that can influence how we perceive something. And so I'll say them in English just for the sake of clarity and for understanding. So you have fear, rejection, demand, and ego. And so I think if I had to categorize the main element of a video that I see when it comes to talking about the divine feminine, I'd say it's mostly ego and demand. Ego's first, demand is second. It seems like the emphasis on talking about divine femininity right now is more so to satisfy some personal desire rather than to fully connect with that energy, to hone in that energy, not only for your benefit, but for the benefit of other people, because whatever's happening internally within us, we inevitably project outwards to other people. So I just think that a lot of what is commonly discussed around divine femininity is very ego-driven, more so than soul-driven. So let's unpack some of that so that perhaps we can get closer to being soul-driven in our desire to explore that energy, rather than coming from a place of distortion and demand and ego. So the first common distortion that I feel like I have seen over the years that divine feminine energy has been popular on social media is that divine feminine energy is gender specific. I can't tell you how many programs, courses, YouTube videos, podcasts I have seen talking about how to strengthen your divine femininity, how to tap into your divine femininity, and it's very gender focused, for lack of a better term. It is very focused on women and people that identify as being women. And I think that can create a lot of misunderstanding about what Shakti energy, what divine feminine energy is, because that energy is not gender specific. Every single one of us has divine masculine and divine feminine energy within us that we have access to, regardless of whether you identify as a man, as a woman, as non-binary. We all have those energies. I believe that we all have those energies influencing us and residing within us that we can access. And so when I see all of these programs, courses, content, whatever, etc., that is very focused on divine femininity for women, I think it can further ostracize people, and I think it can further distort the reality that energy is just energy and it is not gender specific. One gender does not have greater access to that energy over another, I don't believe. I think we can all access divine masculine and divine feminine energy if we have the pure intention to do so, and if we put in the energetic practice and the work to do so. So that's the first thing that I think is really distorted and can be really confusing for people. And I think can put people in a box because they feel like they have to subscribe to a certain way of gender identity in order to connect with their divine femininity, and that is just not true. The second distortion that I think I see the most often is that divine feminine energy is about getting a man. This goes hand in hand with the first distortion. Again, I have come across, especially over the last 2 to 3 years, so many programs, so many courses, so many series online about honing in your divine femininity, tapping into your divine feminine energy, awakening your divine feminine energy. And then shortly after that's discussed, we then typically get into getting a man on the other side of accessing that energy. Like, if you have been in the spiritual space for any length of time, you've likely heard of the concept of divine counterparts, twin flames, some narrative version of that. And so you may see a lot of content about the divine feminine right now is in this energy, and the divine masculine right now is in this energy, and union is going to happen, and how to attract your divine masculine, and how to manifest your divine soulmate, and all of these things. And the crux of achieving that I see typically kind of marketed is tuning into your divine feminine energy so that you can attract that romantic relationship that you're desiring. And wanting a romantic relationship is obviously not gender or sex specific at all. It's not just about getting a man, it can be about getting a woman, like, bottom line, there is this distortion that's present about divine feminine energy being about earning or getting or achieving or manifesting a romantic connection. And I think that can also keep people in a box. I think that can also keep people in a cycle of constantly feeling like they have to perform femininity in a certain way and perform that feminine energy in a certain way in order to achieve that relationship or get that relationship. So going back to the concept of avidya, that's ego, that's demand presenting itself. And all of the content around that, around manifesting this divine relationship by tuning into your divine feminine energy, it is very ego driven. And we'll further get into why it's so ego driven in a second. But the third common distortion that I believe that I see around divine feminine energy is that divine feminine energy is either hypersexual or it's hyper modest. You have likely seen some form of this online in your personal life where someone either becomes very hypersexual and they're saying that that is their femininity, or they become very hyper modest and that is their femininity. And in my personal opinion, Shakti energy is neither. Like, it's neither hypersexual, it's not hyper modest either. It kind of sits somewhere in between. It's balanced. Actual Shakti energy is balanced. It is able to both be reserved and knows how to reserve its energy, but it also knows how to give its energy and receive energy from other people. It is this internal balance that creates, it gives and it receives. And it knows how to reserve when it's necessary. So if you've been seeing a lot about tuning into your femininity is about hypersexuality or having a lot of partners or having a lot of relationships, or if you've seen the other side of that spectrum, that divine femininity is about abstinence and celibacy, and neither one of those have really resonated with you and have been a source of confusion for you, just know that Shakti energy, in my opinion, is balanced, and we'll further get into what that balance actually looks like for you and what it can mean for you. But just know that it is neither hypersexual or hyper modest. The fourth distortion that I tend to see, and this goes hand in hand with honestly the first distortion and the second one, is that divine feminine energy is about expensive luxury. With TikTok, with YouTube, Instagram maybe, I'm not sure, I'm not on Instagram, so this may be an idea that's present on Instagram too. But I see a lot of connections being created between someone being in their divine femininity and living a very expensive, luxurious life. There's this connection being made between feminine energy and earthly materialism, which is very interesting because I'm sure we could dive into the ways that capitalism kind of seeps its way into every single thing, even things that involve spirituality and energy. But again, Shakti energy, that divine feminine energy, is not materialism. It is not hoarding things. It is not gaining things. It is not spending exuberant amounts of money in order to feel feminine. And don't feel pressured to do that either. Like, if you are seeing that work for someone else, if you are seeing that perpetuated by someone else online, maybe that works for them. Maybe that's their life path. Maybe that's how their feminine energy expresses itself, through luxurious spa days and bags and an expensive apartment, whatever it might be. Maybe that's how their particular unique soul blueprint feminine energy represents itself. But please do not feel pressure to go out here and spend egregious amounts of money just to feel feminine. Like, I would lovingly challenge that and just say, if you feel like your feminine energy can only be accessed through spending money, then maybe you need to further explore where that connection formed. and how exactly that connection is serving you, whether it's even serving you. So yeah, the four main distortions that I have seen: that divine feminine energy is gender specific, that it's about getting a romantic relationship or a man, that it's either hypersexual or hyper modest, and that it's about expensive luxury. And sometimes you may encounter content that has all four of those distortions wrapped into one package, and they are trying to sell it to you. And so if so far you have been resonating with everything that I've been saying, and you've been going, yeah, that does seem like it's a distorted perception of that energy, then I encourage you to start shifting your awareness around coming across content like that. So when you see it now, maybe you ask, does this really resonate with you? Does it authentically feel connected to divine feminine energy, or does it feel like something that's just being created to sell something to you, to sell a way of thinking or living to you? Just increasing your level of discernment is what I ask from having a greater awareness around these distortions. And so now that we've talked about the distortions, let's talk about what I personally believe Shakti, divine feminine energy, to actually be, and how you can start forming your own relationship with that energy. So the first thing that needs to be discussed, and we've already kind of tapped into this a little bit, is that Shakti is the feminine force of the universe. It is the feminine to the masculine. It is the yin and the yang, as you've likely heard it referred to as. It is the light and the dark. It is the balance of all things. And Shakti energy is that divine mother, that receptive, intuitive, creative energy that has the ability to create life, but also to dismantle things that are not in service to the highest evolution of all beings. It is the warrior goddess energy. It is the peaceful warrior energy. And I believe that this energy can manifest itself and present itself to us in a variety of ways, which is why there are so many depictions of goddesses and deities that have that feminine energy. There are so many different images that we can see of what this divine feminine energy looks like, and I think they're all true, because this energy can be so many different things to so many different people. It is that divine mother that can take care of her children in all of the ways that are necessary. So if that means being more fierce, that's how that energy will present itself. If it means being more gentle and caring, that is how that energy will present itself. And I believe, going back to what we touched on a little bit earlier, is that we all have access to this divine mother energy, this divine feminine energy within us. Just like I believe we all have the divine father energy within us. And that could be a separate podcast episode. But I believe we all have access to these energies. We were all created from these energies, and therefore we have them within us. And I think connecting to this energy can be about healing. It can be about creation. It can be about receptivity. It can be about enhancing your intuition and your ability to sense what is true. It is a very inward focused energy. And that's what makes it so much more confusing to me when I see some of these things online where divine feminine energy is made to be a very external thing. It's almost made to be a performance of this energy rather than a natural, organic embodiment of this energy. Because going back to the idea that we all have a unique soul blueprint that I lightly referenced earlier, every single one of us is going to embody this divine feminine, divine mother energy differently. For some people, that is motherhood, but for other people, it's their creative life. For some people, it shows up in the love that's present within their friendships or in the love they have for the work that they do. It can manifest itself differently in every single person. It will be presented and embodied in every single person in a unique way. So the idea that there's a specific way to perform divine feminine energy just feels so distorted and harmful, because it feels like it can keep someone in a loop of inauthenticity of trying to be and perform something that they don't personally feel connected to or fully rooted in. So I think the shift out of performance into embodiment is to turn off all of the noise that you hear about divine feminine energy. Let go of that program, that course, whatever it might be that is selling you this idea that you have to have all of these luxurious things, or you have to be with a man, you have to be in a relationship, or you have to be hypersexual, or you have to be hypermodest. Turn all of that down, turn the dial on that down, so that you can actually hear the voice of your inner divine mother with more clarity. And that requires practice, that requires sitting in meditation, that requires practicing rituals that feel good for you. And I don't necessarily mean some witchy shit when I say rituals. If that's what resonates with you, then absolutely, by all means, do that. But I just mean like sacred practices that help you get in your body, help you connect with your heart, so that that doorway and that bridge to that divine feminine energy can start to open in an authentic way, so that you can hear what that energy actually wants to relay to you. Because I think when you're constantly outsourcing how to connect to that energy, you're always searching for someone else to give you the blueprint or show you the way. You're filtering your ability to hear that energy yourself, because you've created a pathway that's full of everyone else's opinions, that's full of everyone else's way of living and their way of doing things. They have their own connection with that energy. And if that's what resonates with them and that's how they embody it, then so be it. But keep in mind that we are all unique in that way energetically. And so what resonates for them might not resonate for you. Maybe it will, but it's important for you to sit with yourself and sit with that energy, so that you can determine what actually resonates with you and how you can embody it that feels in a way that feels authentic to who you are and who you want to be. I did have a second point to make, but I kind of covered it. Essentially, the second truth about divine feminine energy that I wanted to cover was that the energy will present itself in the form that best serves what we need at the time. And this is part of the reason why I believe we have so many different depictions of goddesses and deities and divine feminine energies, because every single person who has intuited and experienced that depiction was in need of a very specific energy or element or goal at that moment in time. And so that's how that energy presented itself. That's why we have Kuan Yin, but we also have Kali. That's why we have Mother Mary, but we also have Ma'at, you know? So I think this universal, unfathomable, incomprehensible energy is always presenting itself in the way that we need to experience it at that moment in time. And I think that just further supports the idea that there is no one way to be in divine feminine energy. There is no right way. And if there is anyone or any company that is trying to sell you this idea that there is a right way to perform and embody divine feminine energy, just know that that idea within itself is contradictory to how the divine feminine chooses to show up, because that energy itself shows up in different ways and at different times. So I'm just saying, I don't know that there's necessarily a right way to perform that energy if that energy itself doesn't perform it one singular way all of the time. And then my third way of connecting to this energy in a truthful and authentic way is to remember that this energy wants to support us in being our most authentic, intuitive, and empowered selves. This is not about aesthetic. This is not about money or how much money we spend or whether we are in a romantic relationship. This energy is supporting us in being who we are called to be in this lifetime. In the same way that the Divine Father wants the best for its children, so does the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother wants us to be authentically ourselves, because the more authentic we are, the more we can actually live out our soul purpose or our dharma. Imagine if you're living in alignment, or quote, in alignment with someone else's way of accessing and embodying that energy. You may be removing yourself from actually experiencing the things that you are meant to experience, or accessing the wisdom you're meant to access because you are trying to live out someone else's dharma or someone else's journey. And so this is the importance of tuning into your own personal connection with this energy that's independent of what other people are saying or what other people are doing or what the current societal understanding of that energy is, so that you can live in alignment with your soul purpose, so that you can embody who you authentically are called to be, because that's what the goddess wants from us. That's what the divine energy wants for us, so that we can be who we are meant to be. And that is not about performance. That is not about aesthetic. That is not about luxurious hotels. Again, grain of salt. Maybe it is for some people, but it doesn't have to be for you if that's not what resonates with you. So the goddess wants all of us to go in, not out, in. Wants us to tune into our personal connection with her so that we can access the wisdom and the insights that we are supposed to receive from her, so that we can live out our soul dharma. So yeah, 4 common distortions, 3 perspective shifts to hopefully help you potentially connect with that divine mother energy in a deeper or greater way. If this resonated with you, feel free to let me know in the comments or in the poll that I left on Spotify, potentially like what distortions you've seen around divine feminine energy and how you understand that energy to be. Would love to know what your experience is like and connect with you in that way. Of course, if you would like to experience more content like this in the future, feel free to follow the podcast or subscribe if you are watching on YouTube. And if you would like to learn more about the work that I do and just about my journey in general, feel free to click the link in the description to my website for all of that information. Thank you so much for spending 30 minutes roughly of your day with me, listening to me yap about divine feminine energy and all of the things. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.